So, have you heard who's going to be the new Doctor?
Yes, I have heard who's going to be the new Doctor.
It's Peter Capaldi.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
I'm Tom Dickinson.
And I'm Louis Midas.
And this is the Cloister Room,
a podcast about Doctor Who and other things.
Did you watch the live announcement show?
No, I didn't.
Oh, you missed out.
Oh, I did?
No, it was super crazy and weird and really just kind of dumb.
Okay, well, all right. I think you need to elaborate because I really have no idea. Like, I mean, were there like, what was happening? Were they like announcing it from like a pit of Jello? Things like that. I don't know.
They might as well have done. I mean, it was on a stage with like flashing lights and lots of like, I don't know. It just looked kind of like a game show set almost, or something. And the presenter, I forget her name, Zoe Ball, I think maybe.
Okay.
I don't know who she is, and I didn't know who half the people on the show were. Like they invited on celebrity guests who may be celebrities in the UK. But I just don't know who they are. Aside from, they had Peter Davison. I know who that is. Yeah. And then they had Bernard Cribbins. And then they had Peter Capaldi. But in addition, they just had all these people. And she was super hyped about how, like, in just a few moments, we'll be announcing the thing everyone here is waiting for. It's the dawn of a new age for Doctor Who fans all over the world. Everything is it's like kind of like watching. Have you ever watched? Well, Dick Clark's isn't alive anymore, but Dick Clark's New Year's Rockin' Eve.
Yes, I can safely say that I have actually watched that. Yes.
Okay, it's kind of like that.
I was gonna say that sounds, the way you were describing it made it sound like they were like counting down to the new year, like in just the most ridiculous, overhyped way possible. So okay, so basically, yeah, and they had people on, and then they had some pre-filmed talking head segments with Matt Smith, with Stephen Moffat, and then with a bunch of people from Doctor Who's past. Like they had Colin Baker, they had Katie Manning, they had Jenna Coleman. Actually, they had her. They just had tons and tons of people. Annika Wills. Just lots of Doctor Who related people, and some people who had nothing to do with Doctor Who, or at least I presume they had nothing to do with Doctor Who because I didn't know who they were. I see. So, and what were these segments discussing? Like they were just talking about just general Doctor Who, like, this role is so great and so big and it affects so many people all over the world.
Yeah, well, it was a lot of that, and a lot of talking about like what regeneration is and like how it's the most amazing concept I've ever heard of for a television program. It's like that he can change his face, and then they went through one by one and talked about each Doctor in turn. And it was like a 30-minute program, and it was about 25 minutes in that they finally announced Peter Capaldi.
Wow.
And then they had him on stage, and he talked a little bit, and my favorite thing he did was he did a William Hartnell lapel tug. Which is... Okay. Yeah, because apparently...
well, it's crucial.
It's crucial, yeah. So.
Well, I'm sad I missed out on this.
I'm sure you could find it somewhere if you wanted to watch it. It was just the most bizarre thing.
Well, right, because I mean, I know that this is a big deal, but I don't know if it's that big of a deal. I don't know. It almost just seems condescending.
Well, my favorite part of the whole thing is because they had a live audience of Doctor Who fans.
Oh, yeah?
And the way this is done was about a week or two beforehand, they said, we're doing a new special TV program having to do with the Doctor Who anniversary. Tickets are free, sign up for tickets, without mentioning that, it was this. It was the announcement of the new Doctor. But they encouraged people to dress up in costume and stuff. So, throughout the audience, a couple of people were in costume. Not all of them by any means, or at least it didn't seem to me like there were all that many. A little hard for me to tell watching because of the lighting. But
right.
Because it was lit like a game show audience. But anyhow, at one point she talked about how we've got an audience packed full of really enthusiastic Whovians. And then it pans to show the audience who's stone-faced and just isn't cheering at all. Just isn't reacting. And I thought it was the funniest part.
That's fantastic. Oh, man. As I understand it, you have to be very clear about when you want the audience to be, excited about things.
Yeah.
That's really funny. I don't know.
Yeah. So, highlights of it include there was the "Who's your favorite Doctor?" question, and while Peter Davison was on stage, someone else said something other than Peter Davison, and he mocked offense at this. He's like, "Well," yeah. He wasn't really offended though, and then he talked a little bit about the fact that he's got this dynasty in his family because he's the father-in-law of David Tennant, and yeah, he said his favorite Doctor was Patrick Troughton. Yeah. And the presenter, Zoe, what's her name, said to Bernard Cribbins, now your character was the one who was sort of responsible for David Tennant leaving. And then he just goes, well, if you're going to be rude, I'm going to leave. Which was pretty funny. Yeah. And one guy just messed things up. He kept saying things that were wrong. And the audience sort of made fun of him, and he made fun of himself. He referred to Peter Eccleston. And referred to "he will knock 3 times."
Wait, was this intentional?
No.
So he
was talking seriously about how he turned to Bernard Cribbins and just and I remember your characters. I remember that moment, and it's he will knock 3 times, and then Bernard Cribbins was actually, it's 4. And then he's you know what? Here's the 4th, and then he knocks on the table. And then this other guy, I completely forget his name because I have no idea who he is. He just sort of buries his face in his hands oh no, I told myself before I came on I wouldn't get any facts wrong. And then later on he said Peter Eccleston, and then similar reactions. It was just very surreal, the whole experience.
Well, right, because it sounded like they had this idea that they were going to do this big, grand kind of thing, and they had all these plans and hopes and dreams, and it just seems like it was kind of. I mean, it sounds to me like the way you're describing it that it was just kind of all thrown together. And I mean, I don't know. Yeah,
I actually did. You now? Do you remember when Matt Smith was cast?
I do, because they did a thing on the Doctor Who Confidential, right?
Yeah, it was a specially announced episode of Doctor Who Confidential called The 10 Doctors. And then very shortly beforehand, they announced, guess what? It's not. It's called The 11th Doctor. I was what's the announcement? Although I don't think people were really all that surprised that it was the casting announcement. Anyhow, but it was a pre-filmed documentary style Doctor Who Confidential thing, which I found a little bit saner and easier to wrap my head around, and it seemed like it was more thoughtfully put together, and everyone had stuff to say.
Right. Because, with those pre-recorded things, you can edit and stuff and make it sound good and look good, as opposed to doing a live simulcast whatever thingy, which just seems like it is a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, and my memory of it was that, and this might be completely wrong, my memory might be cheating, I think that was however long it was, and then about 2/3 of the way through, they just nonchalantly cut to a different talking head. You'd had Stephen Moffat, and you'd had David Tennant, and you'd had various other people, and then they just nonchalantly cut to this guy you wouldn't necessarily recognize, and then all of a sudden he starts talking about the part, it's a great part, and then the thing comes up at the bottom of the screen, it's Matt Smith, 11th Doctor. It was just so nonchalant, they just kind of snuck it in there. Whereas this time, she very definitely got up and said, all right, the moment has arrived. What we've all been waiting for. I've got the envelope. And the next Doctor is Peter Capaldi! Oh my God!
Yeah, that sounds just really terrible. I don't know.
I think the reason they did it live was because the way Matt Smith leaked out last time, because he leaked shortly before, was that like someone having to do with the production of the Doctor Who Confidential episode blabbed to Bleeding Cool. Whereas this time, since it was live, there was less of a risk of that. Although, to be perfectly honest, everyone knew it was Peter Capaldi. Or, not everyone knew, but it was widely rumored to be Peter Capaldi for about a week beforehand.
Well, those bookies knew.
Those bookies.
Wasn't that how it worked with the 11th Doctor as well?
I think, like, sort of all at the same time, you know, there was a sudden rush of bets on with the bookies. And Rich Johnson of Bleeding Cool, who had previously been saying, it's Patterson Joseph, it's Patterson Joseph, it's Patterson Joseph, suddenly said, oh wait, I've got new information saying it's not Patterson Joseph, it's Matt Smith. And this was just before the announcement.
I see.
So it only really came out the day of, I think.
Wow.
Whereas with Peter Capaldi, kind of people figured it out a while ago, or thought they had figured it out. I was not terribly surprised, but it was nice to have that confirmed.
Yeah, that is nice. Yeah, you know, I hadn't really been following it all that closely, but I guess I'd seen on Twitter people were talking about Peter Capaldi, and so I was kind of I wasn't expecting it, but I was not surprised, or I was not so surprised. I guess it was kind of surprised that I'd heard of him. I guess that was the thing that surprised me most.
Well, yeah, because I think what most people were expecting was that it would be someone who was relatively unknown.
Yeah.
It would be someone who, I think most people were probably expecting, it's probably going to be a man, and it's probably going to be a white guy, and it's probably going to be someone who is, like, under 45.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if I ever... Yeah, I guess I didn't really think about what the age would be, but I guess I would have figured someone younger. I mean, it's just, I'm so used to that at this point.
Well, yeah, Moffat has kind of said in the past that he would have been willing to consider quote-unquote older actors, but I always kind of interpreted that as meaning, like, in their 40s.
Right.
As opposed to someone who is actually older than William Hartnell.
Yeah.
By a couple months.
Yeah, because, I mean, you think about, I mean, not to say that, you know, Peter Capaldi is, like, infirm or whatever, but, I mean, you know, it's just, you know, there's a lot of, you know, physicality to the role these days, you know, with, you know, running everywhere and doing things, and I mean, I don't expect them to, like, do all their own stunts, but, like, maybe they do some stunts and things like that, and, you know, it seems like there's a lot demanded physically of the character these days, so I would have thought, like, they would have to go with someone who's, you know, pretty well in shape, like, not, like, I mean, it doesn't have to be super buff or whatever, but, you know, just...
Although Matt Smith kind of is.
Yeah, definitely.
Have you seen those pictures of him with shirtless from that Ryan Gosling movie he's working on?
Oh, yeah, I have seen, like, a few of those, yeah. Yeah, there you go.
But yeah, it is kind of a surprising choice because it's... I think it is going to change some things about... Not just about how people perceive the show, but it might well change some things about the show itself. Mm-hmm. Because, to me, this might be kind of crazy, but he almost kind of looks like William Hartnell.
I didn't think about that.
And I feel like because he's, like, you know, similar age to William Hartnell, and he's a super old school Doctor Who fanboy who has been a fan since the Hartnell era. Yeah. I kind of wonder whether they might kind of take a cue from the Hartnell era and say, like, let's introduce a new young male character who he's our action hero.
That'd be cool. I'd be down with that.
Yeah. I think I'm willing and able to see anything that kind of shakes it up from the established dynamic, because that's kind of how it should be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree, and I think it's cool. I think it's just, like, a cool idea in general to have the Doctor be older all of a sudden, because I mean, like, you know, he is really old, and I mean, it's recently it's been kind of a weird thing where it's kind of like a paradox where, like, he's super old but he looks so young, and now, you know, he's still super old and he's still much older than a human. You know, he's certainly older than Peter Capaldi, but, you know, it's at least now it's sort of, it's a little bit more, it fits, I guess I want to say. And I don't know. I just think that's kind of cool, because you do forget how old he is, or I forget how old he is. And so, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about the, like, the modern version of the show, it just seems kind of a lot more youthful to me. Even like, when the Doctor isn't actually younger than the classic series Doctors. Like, for instance, Christopher Eccleston is not younger than, say, for instance, Peter Davison was.
Oh, that's true.
But still, he kind of seems to play it in a more youthful way as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting to me to think, we've got our idea of like what New Who is like compared to what Classic Who is like. How is this going to sort of shift that? Probably not radically change it, but shift it in some way.
Yeah, and it would be cool if Peter Capaldi kind of went back to kind of like the way the way the first Doctor was, and be kind of like that. Maybe like a not quite as active, but kind of just like the grumpy old man kind of thing. That'd be cool. I'd be down with that. But I think that's cool. I and I'd like to see kind of, I don't know, I guess I'm just really interested to see how he is going to play the Doctor.
Yeah, because from most of what I've seen of him doesn't really suggest the sort of zaniness of Tennant and Smith.
Right.
Although I haven't seen a lot of his body of work. I've just seen, The Fires of Pompeii, which I haven't rewatched in years. Children of Earth, which I actually haven't rewatched in years either. And I just watched the first series of The Thick of It. But he may well be great at that kind of thing, and I just don't know it. But it's hard for me to envision him doing that based on what I've seen him in.
Right, and I mean, I don't know. I feel like it would almost be like a wasted opportunity if they made, or not necessarily if they made him, but if he chose to play it like kind of like a zany, crazy kind of 11th Doctor kind of way, or even like 10th Doctor kind of way. I feel like this is a chance for him. I mean, this is a chance for the Doctor to be more kind of like quiet and reserved, maybe, and or just things like that, and just kind of really go for the old and wise kind of aspect. I don't know. I mean, and that's not to say that it couldn't work to do that kind of zany, whatever energetic kind of David Tennant thingy, but I'm ready for something new or different or perhaps old, as the case may be.
Perhaps very old. One thing that I think is kind of interesting is that he's kind of an established name and he's kind of an older guy, and he's playing what might be the 12th Doctor or might actually be the 13th.
Right.
So I wonder if this is the Doctor Moffat has chosen in a very specific way for a very specific, 13th Doctor story.
Right. And that I think would be very cool, because I think that like the 13th, I would hope, or I would, in my mind, when I think of what they would be doing with the 13th Doctor, my thought is, well, it's going to be something that sort of ties in with the idea that this is his last incarnation. And, maybe it's his farewell tour, so to speak. And then, like, something happens right at the end where, like, oh, everything changes, and, and he's got more generations now or something. And but yeah, so I think that like that's what I think of, is like something very specific, like a goodbye kind of thing.
Yeah, and if this is the last life of the Doctor's kind of original set of lives, I can almost see the sense in like why this really probably it probably is better off that we have this be a white guy.
Right, an old white guy.
An old white guy who fits in with that set. And then maybe like maybe even like the next 13 Doctors are all women or something, something like that, or do something kind of crazy. I mean, they say that regeneration kind of allows you to recast the Doctor any way you like, but maybe after 13 regenerations there just won't be any more regenerations, and there'll be an entirely different plot device that's introduced to explain how the actor changes. In that case they could do literally whatever they want, because there is this audience expectation for change, but they're not tied down to anything.
That's true. It could very well be that Peter Capaldi was cast with the idea that this is going to be like tying it all up with a bow. He's the bow that they're tying it all up with.
Bow ties are cool.
They are. That sort of like ends the arc of like the old white guy, the old white guy arc. And then they're free to move forward with a new fresh Doctor kind of idea, and do like a different thing. And it would be cool if like it's almost like we take a step back and now there's an even further plot device that controls basically what you just said, the casting of different actors, and that would be cool. I don't know though. I think a lot of people would be upset if the idea of regeneration was abandoned entirely, which is kind of an odd thing to even say, because it just started off as a plot device to recast the actor anyway.
Yeah, I mean, and that's one of the things that kind of gets on my nerves when I hear people say, like, even like people on the production team, like when they're asked like, oh, is Captain Jack ever going to come back? Or things like, is the Doctor ever going to be a woman? Or just all kinds of things. And the answer is often like, well, yes, we could do that, but only if there was a really good story reason. Otherwise, it would just kind of be cheap and gimmicky. And I'm like, no, shut up. Doctor Who is like 80% cheap gimmicks. I mean, You have to have
Right.
the Daleks every season just because. It's just so the whole concept of Doctor Who just lends itself to saying, all right, there's this cheap gimmick we have to work into the story. Let's just figure out a way to do it. And I feel like more so than any other thing on television, that just works so well with what Doctor Who is.
That's true. Yeah. So, I mean, I wouldn't get hung up on the idea that, like, well, this is the established way that they change actors, and it can never be anything different. Like, I mean, I don't think that's got to be the way things got to be. Or it could be that maybe it turns out Time Lords have some kind of special meta regeneration where the regenerations regenerate, and then it changes because maybe this is how it works. This is like. Because he had the set of regenerations, which was the white guy set of regenerations. And now he's going to get a different set where it's going to be like the black guy set of regenerations or the woman set of regenerations. And like that could be a thing. You know, we don't know. So I would be completely fine with that.
Sure. Why not? Yeah, could be. It's like he's got like a themed set of
it's like
like emoticons.
Exactly.
Like, you know how you get this theme set of emoticons, you got all these different emoticons, but they all fit within this one theme.
That's right. Yeah, like a wallpaper pack or something. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think so. It makes sense.
I guess they must be starting to film the Christmas special soon, because that's probably why they timed the announcement the way they did.
Right, yeah, because there's no way they could keep it a secret. Well, theoretically they could keep it a secret, but why would they?
Yeah, and I've kind of always been wondering whether Matt Smith is leaving at the end of the Christmas special, or maybe just like right at the beginning.
Yeah.
And I still don't feel like I know that for sure, because Moffat kind of said at Comic-Con or something that it was going to be the end, but I don't really trust what Moffat says, because Moffat said Matt Smith was going to be the Doctor forever.
He promised. Yeah,
He did.
I don't know. But yeah, you know what would be cool, and almost very, very Moffat-y, well, actually definitely very Moffat-y, would be if, like, it was almost like a multi-Doctor special, where, like, the 11th Doctor lands, and the 12th Doctor is there, and then they do, like, a thing together, and then at the very end, Matt Smith regenerates into 12, and then 12 goes back in time to meet himself as 11. Wouldn't that be something?
That would sure be something.
He'd get Christmas twice that year.
Yeah. Sometimes Christmas comes twice.
So yeah, who knows?
Yeah, I'm not really anticipating that though, because I feel like it's probably going to be all Matt Smith, and then a little bit of Capaldi at the end, much like the end of Time was.
Yeah, and that's really, though, I think that's the best way to get people excited. Or it certainly worked when 10 regenerated into 11, to have that little minute of him saying like 3 lines and then closing credits. And that was pretty cool, and that got me hyped for Series 5. So I would expect something similar here to get me hyped for Series 8.
Yeah, the problem with that though is that with Matt Smith, it was the regeneration happened on New Year's Day, and then it was just a wait until I think May.
Oh yeah.
Whereas this time it's going to be a regeneration on, I guess, Christmas Day, and then we're gonna have to wait until autumn of the following year, and that's going to be excruciating.
Yeah, that is pretty excruciating.
Unless it's not really autumn. I mean, I don't think we know that for 100% certain, but I think that's been very widely suggested by like the Radio Times and stuff.
Right. They need to stop doing this. They need to stop making us wait so long for Doctor Who.
They do.
But yeah, I don't know. That would be a very, very long time to stay hyped for Peter Capaldi.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they'll release some prequels that won't really be prequels at all.
Maybe.
I just want to once again issue my complaint that they really need to get back to doing 13 episodes starting in the spring and ending, midsummer or whatever. And they really, really ought to do that.
Yeah, I feel like that regularity is kind of important.
Well, yeah, and I mean, I feel like it is the pattern that most television follows almost exclusively. Like, I know for a fact that Castle is coming back in September, and, like, I like that. And, yeah, it'll take a mid-season break over, winter, and it'll come back sometime in January, but I know that that's going to happen, and I like that.
Yeah, and I know Breaking Bad's coming back soon, and...
That's right.
Breaking Bad has been pretty much, it's a summer show.
Yeah.
And there's, I just like that.
You like television shows you can set your watch to.
Exactly.
Yeah. Not so with Doctor Who. And I mean, in some sense, I guess the sort of temporal nature of the show sort of maybe that sort of fits into their seeming randomness of scheduling.
No. I don't know. I don't want that. I don't buy that at all.
Yeah, no. I mean, I'm not suggesting it's enjoyable, but
back in the 60s there was like 40 episodes a year.
That's true. They've gotten lazy and soft.
Yeah, I'd like to see that.
Yeah. Maybe we can get the actors to flub their lines too.
Yes. So what did you think of the small bit of the thick of it that you saw?
I liked it, but I it seemed like Peter Capaldi was only in about like a fifth of it, maybe.
Yeah, I was actually kind of surprised by how, like, because he seems to be, I don't know, maybe the breakout character of it or something.
Yeah.
Kind of like how in Family Matters, Steve Urkel wasn't supposed to be the main character.
Right.
But yeah, I was actually a little surprised upon watching the first episode that he didn't play that huge of a role. I think he's in it a little bit more in the second and third episodes.
Ah, man.
But yeah, I thought there's actually not all that much to go on with his performance.
Yeah, I liked it.
Yeah,
I liked what I saw.
I liked what I saw of him. I kind of every time I saw him on screen, just because I'm watching with the mindset of like, this is the Doctor.
Yeah.
I tried to imagine him, unleashing righteous fury upon the Daleks or the Cybermen.
Right.
And I can imagine that.
Yeah.
I feel when I see him on screen, I'm like, okay. I mean, if he were saying completely different things, but in that exact same tone of voice with that exact same body language, I could totally buy that as the Doctor.
Right, with a lot less swearing.
Yes, a lot.
But yeah, no, I was trying to think of that too, and I almost got a little bit of nostalgia though, because I watched something after we found out about Matt Smith. I watched something that he was in with Billie Piper.
Was that Call Girl, Secret Diary of a Call Girl?
No, that was.
Oh, you watched The Ruby and the Smoke?
Yeah, that one. Yes,
because he was actually in both of those things with Billie Piper.
Oh, so it was a 50-50. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it fell down on Ruby and the Smoke.
Actually, I think he was in two of those Philip Pullman thingies with Billie Piper.
Right, yes, and I guess I was only a dedicated fan enough to watch one of them. But he was in like a scene, and for some reason I watched all the way through, but I
Was it any good?
It was all right. I mean, I don't really remember it. I was just so excited to see Matt Smith, and I probably rewatched that scene a bunch of times and then kept going. But in that one scene that I got with him, it didn't properly set up my expectations for the 11th Doctor. So I'm not so sure that this did a much better job of that. But no, I mean, I can totally see him playing the Doctor. I mean, you know what it is though. You know what? I'm terribly interested to see what his outfit's gonna be.
Oh yeah.
Because I mean, it was really weird that like, I almost had trouble picturing Matt Smith in the role until I saw him in his outfit, and like the first leaked photos of him in his outfit with the bow tie and everything.
Yeah, I think they were in the filming for Time of Angels.
Yeah.
They're out on like the rocks and stuff like that. Oh, I remember that because I felt the same way.
Yeah, and I was like, oh my god, he just looked so weird and funny, and it just seemed like something that the Doctor would wear, and it was, I don't know, that really sort of cemented in my mind the idea of him as the Doctor. And so I'm similarly excited to see what Peter Capaldi ends up wearing.
Yeah, because I mean, even when I look back at those early pictures of Matt Smith, like the one where he's dressed in the blue jacket and he's sort of standing near the TARDIS, and he's got this like gaunt face, and I'm like, who is this guy?
Right.
And then you see him in the costume, and I felt the same way. And the thing is, with Peter Capaldi, the truth is, even though I think he's a fantastic actor and I'm excited to see him as the Doctor, I don't see him as the Doctor yet.
Right, right.
It's not like it's not just like you see him on screen there and it clicks. It's just that I'm excited to have that process of seeing him as the Doctor.
Yeah, because
I'm sure it's going to happen.
Yeah. So yeah, this is like the before picture, and we're gonna get the after, the leaked after picture when he's filming some outdoor shot in costume. I don't know. I want to see, because it's it seems like, I mean, it almost seems like, I know that Christopher Eccleston had the had like his leather jacket or whatever, but it didn't really seem like his outfit was as much like it almost seems like with 10 and 11 their outfits have been very specific and kind of exaggerated, not like exaggerated, but like there's a very definite definition of what their outfits were constituted of. And it, I don't know.
Well, Eccleston is conceivably just someone you could run into on the street.
That's true.
Whereas with Tennant, I mean, it's just goofy. I mean, Tennant's outfit is just completely goofy.
Yeah.
But also kind of just works on him.
Yeah.
And then Smith's looks like someone that you would like encounter in a library.
Yeah. So
not right for the context in which you almost always see him.
Exactly. But yeah, no. So I'm just really interested to see, because it's always, well, I'd kind of already known what David Tennant's outfit looked like when I became a fan, but it's always kind of been an interesting kind of surprise to me to sort of see what the Doctor chooses to wear with each of his incarnations. Yeah.
Let's just try to avoid a Colin Baker situation.
I don't know though. I think the cat lapel pin really tied that look together.
Okay.
But yeah, so you think, yeah, I mean, by and large, the Doctor's outfit has varied wildly from incarnation to incarnation, but it is definitely like iconic as part of the character. So it's and I think that they did a very good job making Matt Smith's outfit very iconic, even as they kept changing it.
Yeah, I think by the end he didn't have so much a costume as he had a look.
Right. Yeah.
And the individual garments that he was wearing weren't even all that similar by the end.
Right.
It was just you kind of saw him wearing this other thing, and it was like, yeah, that is that's the Doctor.
Right. Yeah. So I'm just terribly interested to see how they're going to do that again to make an iconic 12th Doctor look.
Did you hear Moffat's quote on that topic?
Oh, no.
Basically, an interviewer asked him, what is Peter Capaldi's Doctor going to wear? And his response was, clothes. Anything else would be scandalous.
Yeah, there you go. That is definitely true. And I'm relieved to find that out. But yeah. Because it seems like there's a lot that they can't do. Like, I think scarves are pretty well done at this point. Umbrellas, I think they're pretty much over with. So, and bow ties, I think bow ties have certainly been done to death. So now they have to pick the remaining garments and focus on those. I don't know.
Yes. I mean, kind of a lot of the Doctors have their signature accessory. So what is his going to be? Who knows?
Yeah. Who does know? It's all very exciting.
Mm-hmm.
I like this process.
Yeah, because for both of us, this is only the second time this has happened.
Yeah.
And for me, it just feels a lot like it did last time.
Yeah. I think it's it is. It's very exciting. It's because it's like this Christmas present you get to unwrap in stages, and it's going to be very slow. These very slow stages, and it's just it's because we get to discover this new Doctor. Yeah, it might be different for someone who's been a fan, like a veteran fan who's been a fan since God only knows how long, maybe the Hartnell era. Maybe they're sick of regeneration at this point, but I still love it, and I'm excited.
Yeah,
I'm very excited, and it's funny that we've been watching all these classic Doctor Who stories where the Doctor has regenerated or has just gotten done regenerating, and and I keep trying to sort of imagine what it was like for. Or what it would have been like watching the show at the time. But I don't know. It's just really exciting. I love it. I just don't know what to say other than that. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't really been listening or anything, but I haven't really heard any negative feedback about the casting.
I have heard almost no negative feedback about Capaldi. I've heard a little bit of, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to get used to an older Doctor. Which I think is, that's not necessarily negative.
Right.
It's just, this is largely from people who are, solely familiar with the new series.
Right.
And I think that's a completely understandable point of view. And I've heard a lot of negative backlash against those people. And then negative backlash against the people who are backlashing against those people.
Huh.
Which I think was kind of appropriate well, not it's not. No, I don't think it's appropriate, but I think it kind of matches like the way the Doctor was announced. How like on that Thursday, the BBC announced in a tweet that they would be announcing at midnight when they would be announcing the Doctor, and I just thought that was hilarious. And so now we've got backlash against the backlash against the backlash. But I have heard a lot of backlash against Stephen Moffat for casting another white guy. Specifically, he's made comments about, I don't think the time is right for a female Doctor. He had a really snarky comment in the live show.
Oh, really?
During his Talking Head segment. It was something like, I've heard Helen Mirren says there should be a female Doctor. And I say to that maybe it's time a male played the Queen.
Nah. Sure. I don't know.
Well, the thing is, like, whenever Moffat says something about, like, here's the decision I made in terms of making Doctor Who, and here's why I did it, I just don't believe him, because he says so much stuff that just turns out not to be true. Like, he's like, oh yeah, we just thought, Jenna Louise Coleman was so good in her audition, we figured not only are we going to make her Clara, we're just going to throw her in this other episode at random as well.
Right.
Like, just things like that. He will say whatever is the simplest justification for the thing that he just did, without giving away the thing he's going to do next.
Yeah. So
it might well be that, Capaldi's only going to stay for a year, and then we're going to have 13 female Doctors.
Right.
And he was just saying, the time's not right. Kind of like how Russell T Davies used to say, why would I bring back the Master? The Master's rubbish. Just to throw people off the scent of the fact that he had every intention of doing just that.
Right. On the one hand, I don't know why anyone goes to Stephen Moffat asking him what his grand plan is when, obviously he's not going to tell you what his grand plan is. And so, yeah, it almost seems more reasonable to just take whatever he said and reverse it. Anytime that there's a do, replace it with a don't, and like anytime there's a yes, replace it with a no, and then you've got what he's actually saying, or you've got the truth more accurately. I don't know. It could very well be the specific language he used. Maybe when he says the time is not right, maybe it's because 2013 is not right and 2014 is right. I don't know. I don't know why anyone would ever even bother asking. Like, I don't know why we're still bothering to ask Stephen Moffat about this.
Well, I think it was less of a question and more of an accusation.
Oh, okay.
Like, how dare you cast another white guy? And I mean, like, as I think I've been pretty vocal about saying, like, I am totally down for whoever they want to cast as the Doctor.
Yeah.
As long as it's a good actor, that's cool with me. And I think, there is certainly a point, why does it have to be another white guy? Why? Like, I think it makes some sense to be annoyed with that. I'm not, but I can totally see how other people, especially women and people of color, would be.
Yeah.
So like, I feel like, he's just kind of flippantly just going like, la-di-da-di-da. I don't care about that. Let's make a joke about Helen Mirren, which I thought was kind of, meh, but whatever. I'm totally excited about Peter Capaldi, and it's hard for me to be critical of that.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that there will definitely, I don't know. I don't think there's a reason for it to always be a white guy. If they want to, I feel like I don't know if it was as big of a thing last time, but certainly there were people of different ethnicities being rumored for playing the 11th Doctor, and I think that
mainly Patterson Joseph.
Okay, yeah, right.
And I don't know if you heard, but today something came out about Neil Gaiman claimed that he has a friend who is a black actor who turned down the role, who was offered the role and turned it down.
Huh. Interesting.
So, I don't know who that is. It kind of at one level, like the Matt Smith fanboy in me is horribly offended by the notion that anyone other than Matt Smith was offered that role. But maybe Patterson Joseph was offered the role and turned it down, or I don't know. Obviously that I know that's I'm not actually offended about that. It's just like part of me I have this knee jerk like, what? Scandalous. Even though it's obviously not. But yeah, right. So if what Neil Gaiman has said can be taken at face value, it's not as though there's an institutional policy of not offering the role
right
to black men because apparently a black man was offered it.
Right. Yeah. And yeah, that's part of the thing is, we don't really know what went on behind closed doors, and it could be that there was like this, maybe Stephen Moffat's first choice was this black guy, and he was this awesome actor and he had a really cool interpretation for the 12th Doctor and or something, and he just didn't want to do it. And, that's possible. I mean, it's entirely possible that the first person chosen to play a role will turn it down for any number of reasons. Could be scheduling, monetary, who knows.
It's also possible that Stephen Moffat isn't the singular man in charge.
Right.
Like, he's got co-executive producers, and he's got a boss. His boss has got a boss.
Right.
So it could be that someone said, someone higher up was like, nope, no women, can't do ladies, no ladies.
Right. But I mean, I think there will come a time where we're all on the same page about this, and a woman or someone of a different ethnicity will be cast, and I think that'll happen, and it won't even be like that big. Like, I don't know. I want to say it's not even gonna be that big of a deal, but I mean, it'll be a big deal, but it won't be like offensive to people or whatever. I don't know.
When Matt Smith was cast, the biggest thing people were talking about was how young he was. Because that was all there was to go on. That was all we knew about him, really.
Right.
But then, by the time Series 5 rolled around and people started reacting to the episodes, there was a little bit of talk about that. By the time Series 5 was over, I've never heard a single thing about Matt Smith since then that focuses on how young he is.
That's funny.
Because that notion just completely disappears once you're watching the character. I've heard people who don't like Matt Smith's Doctor, but I've never heard anyone who didn't like it because he was too young. Although I heard people beforehand saying, I'm not going to like that because he's too young.
Right.
So I feel like we are going to come to a point where the Doctor is going to be cast, and it's not going to be a white guy. It's going to be a non-traditional casting in that it's going to be a female or a person of some different ethnicity. And there are some people who are gonna say or think that's not right, that's not the Doctor, that's not how the Doctor should be. And I have a feeling that in a lot of cases, a lot of those people, once they see the Doctor, that's going to completely fall away, and they're going to judge the Doctor on his or her performance.
Right.
So I think even the people right now who say a woman shouldn't play the Doctor, and there are a lot of people out there, or a lot of people who don't want to speak up about what they think about that because they feel like they're going to get eaten alive by what I heard described recently as post Buffy feminist fandom critics, which I think is a fairly good term for it. Sure, why not?
Sure.
But I think the people who are afraid that who believe that but don't say it because they think they're going to get criticized, and they probably will. I think those objections are gonna kind of fall away, and they're gonna judge it on how it is. It's just for the period between the casting and the time we actually see them in the role. I mean, that's all anyone's gonna talk about when that finally does happen.
It's almost like judging people based on like their personality and their worth and their actions. That's what we should be basing that on, as opposed to their appearance or gender.
Well, you might be going a little bit far with that. I mean. I don't know about that.
No, it's the content of their characters. God, that's crazy.
Jeez.
I can definitely see people being disappointed over this casting, and I mean, I would totally have been fine with a different, if they wanted to go in a completely different direction away from, white guy. But I don't know.
Well, and most of what I've heard from people who are disappointed are people who are simultaneously excited and disappointed.
Yeah.
Like people who say, I'm sure Capaldi's going to be great, but it would have been nice. And I am sure Capaldi's going to be great, and I do think it would have been nice. So I guess I'm kind of on the same page with that. But I'm kind of more focusing on my excitement right now because that's all I can do.
Yeah.
Stephen Moffat did cast a female Doctor in 1999.
Oh, is that in
Curse of Fatal Death?
Okay, yeah. I watched that, although it was a while ago. But yeah, that's right. I forgot about that. So yeah, he was... Man, Stephen Moffat was so progressive.
Yeah, and there's also actually... Big Finish does a series of, or they don't do it anymore. I kind of wish they did, but they don't. It's called Doctor Who Unbound, which are Doctor Who stories with different actors playing the Doctor.
Oh, really?
Based on what if scenarios.
Ah.
Like, for instance, there's one What If the Valeyard had one that stars Michael Jason as the Valeyard.
Huh.
There, a couple things like that, and there's one that has the Doctor as a woman.
Huh. That's cool.
So there is precedent.
Now there you go.
In non-canonical, but what's canon anyway?
What
Doctor
is?
doesn't have a canon.
Yeah, that'd be crazy. Can't have that. That would get in the way of these crazy plot lines.
Exactly.